My name is Ruth Henderson, and I'm 72 years old. I worked as a bank teller for 35 years before becoming a branch supervisor for another 10. I retired with $395,000 in savings, a paid-off house, and a pension that covered my basic expenses. But more importantly, I retired with something most people don't have: 45 years of experience watching how people handle and mishandle money. That experience taught me one crucial habit: keep records, write everything down. Document every conversation, every transaction, and every promise, because memory fades, but notes don't lie. I never imagined I'd need to use that habit against my own daughter and son-in-law. 3 months ago, I opened my monthly bank statement and noticed something odd. A transfer of $18,000 from my savings account to my checking account. Then, 2 days later, a withdrawal of $18,000 from checking. I didn't make those transactions. I didn't authorize them. I didn't even know about them until I saw them on my statement. I called my daughter Nicole immediately. She and her husband Greg had asked me for permission to be added to my accounts 6 months earlier in case of emergency. I'd reluctantly agreed, thinking they'd only use the access if I was hospitalized or incapacitated. "Nicole, there's an $18,000 withdrawal from my account. Did you make that?" There was a pause, then in a voice that was just a little too casual. "Oh, that. Yes. Greg and I borrowed some money. We were going to tell you, but we've been so busy." "Borrowed? Nicole, that's my money. You can't just take it without asking." "Mom, we didn't take it. We borrowed it. We're going to pay you back. We just needed it quickly for a house repair. The roof was leaking. We had to fix it before the damage got worse." How much damage could cost $18,000? It wasn't just the leak. It was water damage to the ceiling, mold remediation, replacing insulation. "Mom, it was an emergency. We didn't have time to wait for a loan approval. We were going to ask you anyway, so we just went ahead and borrowed it." Without telling me. "We were going to tell you. We just hadn't gotten around to it yet. Mom, don't be upset. It's not like we stole from you. We're family. We'll pay you back." "When?" "Soon, a few months. Mom, please don't make this into a big deal. We needed help and you weren't available to ask, so we helped ourselves. That's what family does." I hung up feeling uneasy. Something about Nicole's explanation didn't sit right, but I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it really was an emergency and they'd been planning to tell me. Then, 2 weeks later, I saw another transfer. $12,000 this time. Moved from savings to checking, then withdrawn. I called Nicole again. "There's another withdrawal, $12,000. Did you take that too?" "Oh, yeah. Greg needed it for his business. Mom, I was definitely going to call you about that one." "Nicole, that's $30,000 you've taken from my account in 2 weeks. You can't keep doing this." "We're not doing anything, Mom. We're borrowing money that we'll pay back. And honestly, you have plenty. You don't need $395,000 sitting in the bank doing nothing. We needed cash for important things. Why is that a problem?" "Because it's my money. Because you're taking it without asking. Nicole, I need you and Greg to stop using my accounts. Right now." "Mom, we have authorization. You gave us access. We're allowed to use the accounts." "For emergencies, not for whatever you want whenever you want." The roof was an emergency. Greg's business cash flow problem was an emergency. "Mom, you're being unreasonable. We're not doing anything wrong." After that call, I did something I'd learned to do during my 45 years in banking. I started taking notes. Detailed notes. Every conversation, every transaction, every excuse. I pulled all my bank statements from the past 6 months and went through them carefully. And that's when I discovered the full scope of what Nicole and Greg had been doing. They hadn't just taken $30,000 in 2 weeks. They'd been taking money for months. Small amounts at first, $2,000 here, $3,000 there. Amounts I might not notice among my regular expenses. But over 6 months, those small amounts added up to $67,000. $67,000. Moved from my accounts without my knowledge, without my permission, without even a conversation. And Nicole had only admitted to taking money when I directly confronted her about specific transactions I'd noticed. She'd never voluntarily told me about any of it. They moved funds without telling me, so I took notes. Detailed, meticulous notes documenting every unauthorized transaction, every conversation, every lie they told to justify taking my money. Before I tell you what I discovered when I dug deeper into those notes, before I reveal what Nicole and Greg were really using my money for, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. Click it now. Then smash that like button, because this story is going to show you why documentation is your best defense against financial abuse, even when it comes from your own family. Turn on those notifications, that bell icon, because you need to hear what happened when I stopped trusting my daughter's excuses and started trusting my own records. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. What city? What state? What country? I want to know who's here with me today, because what I discovered by keeping careful notes about what my daughter and son-in-law were really doing with my money, it's going to shock you. It shocked me, and it taught me that sometimes the people you love most are the ones you need to document most carefully. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me tell you about Nicole, about how she ended up with access to my accounts, and about the warning signs I missed because I wanted to believe my daughter when she said she'd never hurt me. To understand what happened, you need to understand my relationship with Nicole and how money has always been a complicated topic between us. I raised Nicole mostly alone. Her father, my husband James, died when Nicole was 9 years old. Cancer. It was brutal and fast, 6 months from diagnosis to death. James had been a truck driver. Good, steady work, but not high-paying. When he died, there was a small life insurance policy, $50,000, and that was it. I used it to pay off our mortgage so Nicole and I would always have a home and put the rest into savings for emergencies. I worked full-time at the bank while raising Nicole. I was careful with money, had to be as a single mother. I budgeted every dollar. I saved what I could. I taught Nicole to be responsible with money too. Or at least, I tried to teach her. Nicole was always more of a spender than a saver. Even as a teenager, she'd blow her allowance within days of getting it. I'd lecture her about saving, but it never seemed to stick. Mom, money is meant to be enjoyed. What's the point of saving if you never use it? The point is security, Nicole. The point is having something when emergencies happen. But nothing bad is going to happen. You worry too much. When Nicole graduated high school, I'd saved $25,000 for her college education. It wasn't much, but combined with scholarships and loans, it would get her through 4 years at a state university. Nicole went to college for 2 years, then dropped out. College isn't for me, Mom. I'm not learning anything useful. I want to work, make money, live my life. She got a job as a receptionist at a dental office, made decent money, but she also spent everything she made. New car, new clothes, expensive apartment, constant vacations. Nicole, you should be saving, building up an emergency fund. I am saving. I have like $500 in savings. That's not enough. You should have at least 6 months of expenses saved. Mom, I'm 23. I'm not worried about emergencies. I'm young. I want to enjoy life. When Nicole was 26, she married Greg. He worked in sales, cars, then insurance, then real estate, then some kind of financial services. He changed jobs frequently, always chasing better opportunities. Greg seemed nice enough at first, charming, confident, always talking about his next big deal. But I noticed he spent money like Nicole did. Maybe worse, expensive suits, fancy dinners, brand new truck. Do you and Greg have savings? I asked Nicole after they'd been married a year. Some. Greg handles our finances. He's good with money. How much is some? I don't know exactly. Mom, why are you always asking about money? We're fine. But I could see they weren't fine. I saw the credit card bills they'd leave on my kitchen counter when visiting. I saw the balances. $15,000, $23,000, $31,000. Nicole, those credit card balances are concerning. Everyone has credit card debt, Mom. That's normal. Greg says we're building credit. You're building debt. That's different from building credit. Over the years, Nicole and Greg asked me for money occasionally, usually small amounts. Mom, can you lend us $1,000, just until Greg's commission check comes in? Mom, can we borrow $2,500? We're a little short on rent this month. Mom, our car needs repairs. Can you help us out with $800? I'd lend them the money. They'd promised to pay me back. They never did. After a while, I stopped lending them money. Nicole, I can't keep giving you money you don't repay. I'm retired. I need my savings. We're not asking for much. Mom, you have plenty. Why are you being so stingy? I'm not being stingy. I'm being responsible. Nicole, you and Greg need to learn to manage your money better. We manage fine. We just hit rough patches sometimes. That's what family is for, helping during rough patches. About a year ago, Nicole came to me with a new request. Mom, Greg and I want to be added to your bank accounts. Why? In case something happens to you. If you have a medical emergency, we'd need access to your accounts to pay your bills, handle your expenses. Mom, you're 71 years old. We need to be able to help you if you can't help yourself. I'm perfectly capable of managing my own finances. Now you are, but what if you have a stroke, a heart attack? What if you end up in the hospital unable to communicate? Mom, we need to be able to take care of you. Nicole, I have a power of attorney document. If I'm incapacitated, that gives you authority to handle my finances. But power of attorney only kicks in if you're actually incapacitated. What if you're just hospitalized for a few days? What if you need us to pay bills quickly and we can't access your accounts? Mom, this just makes sense. It's for your protection. I didn't want to add them to my accounts. Everything in my banking experience screamed that this was a bad idea. But Nicole kept pushing. Mom, don't you trust me? I'm your daughter. Why would you think I'd do anything to hurt you? It's not about trust. It is about trust. You're basically saying you don't trust your own daughter. Mom, that hurts. After everything I've done for you, you don't even trust me enough to help you in an emergency. Greg joined in too. Ruth, I promise you, we'd only use the account access in a real emergency. We're not going to touch your money. We just want to be able to help you if you need it. Eventually, I gave in. I went to the bank and added Nicole and Greg as joint account holders on my checking and savings accounts. The bank employee who processed the paperwork, a young woman I didn't know, gave me a warning I should have heeded. Mrs. Henderson, I need to make sure you understand what you're doing. Adding someone as a joint account holder gives them full access to your accounts. They can withdraw any amount at any time without your permission. Are you sure you want to do this? It's my daughter and son-in-law. They've promised only to use the access in emergencies. The employee's expression was sympathetic but concerned. I understand. But Mrs. Henderson, I see a lot of elder financial abuse cases start exactly this way. Adult children get added to accounts just in case. Then they start taking money without permission. Please be careful, and please monitor your accounts closely. I will, thank you. I should have listened to her. I should have trusted my own 45 years of banking experience that told me this was risky. But I didn't, because Nicole was my daughter, because I wanted to believe she'd never hurt me, because family is supposed to be trustworthy. For the first few months after Nicole and Greg were added to my accounts, nothing happened. No unauthorized transactions, no withdrawals. They kept their word. I started to relax, started to think maybe I'd been worried for nothing. Then, 6 months after getting access, they started taking money. Small amounts at first, $2,000 to $3,000. Amounts that didn't stand out dramatically on my statements. I noticed the transactions, but Nicole always had explanations when I asked. Oh, we borrowed a little money for car repairs. We'll pay you back. Greg needed some cash for a business opportunity. We'll replace it next month. "We had an unexpected expense. We'll get the money back to you soon." I made the mistake of accepting those explanations, of trusting that they'd repay the money like they promised. They never did, and the amounts got larger and more frequent, until I was looking at $67,000 gone from my accounts in 6 months. That's when I started keeping detailed notes. That's when I went back through all my statements and documented every single unauthorized transaction. And that's when I discovered something that changed everything. The dates of the withdrawals corresponded with specific events. I started cross-referencing the transactions with social media posts, with things Nicole had mentioned in conversation, with dates I remembered. The $18,000 withdrawal Nicole claimed was for roof repairs. That was taken 3 days before Nicole posted photos on Facebook of a family vacation to Hawaii. The $12,000 Greg supposedly needed for his business cash flow problem. That was withdrawn the same week Greg posted photos of his brand new motorcycle. The $8,000 they'd taken in April that I'd asked about, and Nicole said was for medical bills. That corresponded exactly with the week they'd posted pictures from a weekend trip to Vegas. My daughter and son-in-law weren't borrowing my money for emergencies. They were stealing it to fund a lifestyle they couldn't afford. And they'd been lying to me about it the entire time. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by bank statements and my notebook full of carefully documented notes, and realized the full scope of the betrayal. They moved funds without telling me. When I confronted them, they lied about what the money was for, and they had absolutely no intention of paying any of it back. But I had something they didn't know about. I had notes. Detailed, meticulous notes documenting every transaction, every lie, every contradiction between what they told me and what I could verify through other sources. And I was about to use those notes to make sure they faced consequences for what they'd done. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The morning after I finished documenting all $67,000 of unauthorized withdrawals, I sat at my kitchen table with my notebook and made a plan. I'd spent 45 years in banking. I knew exactly what needed to happen next. First, I took photos of every page of my notes, every bank statement with highlighted transactions, every social media post that contradicted Nicole and Greg's explanations. I uploaded everything to a cloud storage account and emailed copies to myself. If anything happened to my physical records, I'd still have proof. Second, I called the bank and requested transaction histories for the past year, not just statements, but detailed records showing exactly when each transfer occurred, from which device, and from what location. Third, I made an appointment with an attorney who specialized in elder financial abuse. Her name was Lisa Chen, and she came highly recommended by a friend who'd gone through something similar with her son. But before I did any of that, I needed one more conversation with Nicole. I needed to give her a chance to tell me the truth, to admit what she'd been doing and why. I called her that afternoon. "Nicole, I need you to come over. We need to talk about the money." "Mom, I already explained." "No, you gave me excuses. I want the truth. Come over tomorrow. Bring Greg. We're going to have an honest conversation about the $67,000 you've taken from my accounts." There was silence. $67,000. "Mom, we haven't taken that much." "I've documented every transaction, every withdrawal, every transfer. Nicole, I have the records. Don't lie to me anymore." "Mom, you're blowing this out of proportion." "Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Don't be late." I hung up before she could argue. The next day, Nicole and Greg arrived at my house looking defensive and uncomfortable. Nicole was wearing a new designer purse I hadn't seen before, probably cost $800 or more. Greg had on an expensive watch. They sat on my couch while I remained standing, my notebook in hand. $67,000, I said without preamble. "That's how much you've taken from my accounts in the past 6 months." "Mom, it's not that much," Nicole started. "Don't." I opened my notebook. "March 15th. You transferred $2,200 from my savings to checking, then withdrew it. You told me it was for car repairs. But on March 18th, you posted photos on Facebook from a spa weekend in Napa. Cost of that weekend? Approximately $2,000. Nicole's face went pale. April 3rd. You withdrew $8,000, told me it was for medical bills. But that same week, you posted photos from Las Vegas. Hotel suites at the Bellagio aren't cheap, Nicole. Mom, how do you know? Because I took notes, because I documented everything, because I went back and verified every single thing you told me. I flipped through more pages. May 22nd, you took $18,000, told me it was for roof repairs. 3 days later, you posted photos from Hawaii, first-class tickets, luxury resort. That trip cost at least $15,000. Greg finally spoke. Ruth, you're making assumptions. We could have had multiple expenses at the same time. June 5th, you took $12,000, told me Greg needed it for business cash flow. That same week, Greg posted photos of a brand new motorcycle. Harley Davidson, cost about $12,000. I pulled out printouts of their social media posts, each one marked with the corresponding withdrawal date. I have documentation for every lie you've told me, every excuse you gave me for why you needed money. And Nicole, not once, not one single time, did you use my money for what you claimed you needed it for. Nicole was crying now. Mom, please. Did you fix your roof? What? Your roof, the one you said was leaking, the one you needed $18,000 to repair. Did you fix it? Nicole looked down. There was no roof leak. Was there a leak? No. Medical bills? No. Business cash flow problems? Greg at least had the decency to look ashamed. No. So every reason you gave me for taking money, every single explanation, was a lie. We were going to pay you back, Nicole tried. With what money? You're both drowning in credit card debt. You spend every dollar you make and then some. You were never going to pay me back because you don't have the money. Mom, we just needed help. Help? You didn't ask for help. You stole from me. You lied to me. And you used the account access I gave you for emergencies to fund vacations and motorcycles and designer purses. I pointed at Nicole's bag. That purse is new. How much did it cost? Nicole didn't answer. How much, Nicole? $900, she whispered. $900, while you owe me $67,000. Nicole, do you see the problem here? Greg stood up. Ruth, I understand you're upset, but you have to understand we've been under a lot of financial pressure. We needed some enjoyment in our lives, some stress relief. The vacations, the purchases, they were ways to cope with the pressure. Cope with pressure you created by spending money you don't have. Greg, you're not victims here. You're thieves. You stole from an elderly woman, from your own mother-in-law, to fund a lifestyle you can't afford. We were going to pay you back, Greg insisted. When? How? Show me your plan for paying back $67,000. Neither of them answered. That's what I thought. You had no plan. You were just taking money and lying about it, hoping I wouldn't notice. But I did notice, and I documented everything. What are you going to do? Nicole asked, her voice small. I'm removing you from my accounts. Today, I'm going to the bank after you leave and taking both of you off as joint account holders. You'll never have access to my money again. Mom, please. And I'm considering pressing charges for theft. Both Nicole and Greg's heads snapped up. Charges? Nicole's voice was panicked. Mom, you can't, we're family. Family doesn't steal from each other. Nicole, what you've done is elder financial abuse. It's illegal. I could file a police report and you could face criminal prosecution. You wouldn't do that, Greg said, but he didn't sound certain. Wouldn't I? Greg, you've stolen $67,000 from me. You've lied repeatedly. You've shown no remorse and no plan to repay me. Why shouldn't I press charges? Because I'm your daughter. Nicole was sobbing now. Because you love me. Mom, please don't do this. If you press charges, I could go to jail. I could lose my job. We could lose everything. You should have thought about that before you stole from me. We'll pay you back, I promise. Just give us time. How much time? A year? 5 years? 10 years? Nicole, at your current spending rate, you'll never pay me back. You can't even control your spending long enough to stay out of credit card debt. We'll change, we'll budget, we'll cut back. Mom, please just give us a chance. I looked at my daughter, the girl I'd raised alone, the girl I'd worked overtime for, the girl I'd sacrificed so much to give a good life, and I saw a stranger. Someone who'd steal from her own mother and lie about it. Someone who valued designer purses over integrity. I'll think about whether to press charges, but I'm removing you from my accounts today. And Nicole, Greg, I want you to leave my house now. I can't look at you right now. Mom. Leave, now. After they left, I sat in my quiet house and cried. Not because I was sad, though I was, but because I was so deeply, profoundly disappointed. In Nicole, in the choices she'd made, in the person she'd become. But I was also determined. I wasn't going to let this go. I wasn't going to just accept that my daughter had stolen from me and let her face no consequences. That afternoon, I went to the bank. The same young employee who'd warned me when I added Nicole and Greg to my accounts was working. Mrs. Henderson, how can I help you? I need to remove 2 people from my accounts. My daughter and son-in-law. They've been taking money without my permission. Her expression was sympathetic but not surprised. I'm sorry that happened. Let me pull up your accounts. She removed Nicole and Greg as joint account holders. My accounts were mine alone again. But the damage was already done. $67,000 was gone. Mrs. Henderson, have you considered filing a police report? What they did is theft. I'm thinking about it. I have documentation of everything. Good, keep those records. And Mrs. Henderson, I'm sorry. I wish you'd had a different experience. After leaving the bank, I went to my appointment with Lisa Chen, the elder abuse attorney. Lisa reviewed my documentation, the bank statements, my notes, the social media posts proving Nicole and Greg had lied about what they needed money for. Mrs. Henderson, this is an excellent case. You have clear documentation of unauthorized withdrawals. You have proof they lied about the purpose of the withdrawals. And you have evidence they spent your money on luxury items rather than necessities. Can I get my money back? Possibly. We could file a civil lawsuit for the full amount plus damages. We could also report this to law enforcement for criminal prosecution. Mrs. Henderson, what they've done is elder financial abuse, which is both a crime and a tort. What's the difference between civil and criminal? Criminal prosecution would potentially send them to jail. Civil lawsuit would seek to recover your money. You can pursue both simultaneously or choose one path. What would you recommend? That depends on your goals. Do you want punishment, recovery, both? I thought about that. Did I want to send Nicole to jail? Part of me did. She deserved consequences. But part of me couldn't bear the thought of my daughter behind bars. I want my money back. Can I get it without pressing criminal charges? We can try. We'd file a civil lawsuit, present your evidence, and seek a judgment for the full $67,000 plus interest and attorney fees. If we win, and I think we would, Nicole and Greg would be legally obligated to repay you. And if they can't pay, we can garnish wages, put liens on property, seize assets. Mrs. Henderson, we have ways to collect. But I need to be honest. If they truly have no assets and are drowning in debt, collecting the full amount could take years. What about the criminal option? If you file a police report and they're prosecuted, they could face jail time. But that doesn't automatically get you your money back. Sometimes restitution is part of a criminal sentence, but not always. And if they're in jail, they can't work to repay you. So I have to choose between justice and recovery. Not necessarily. We could file the civil suit and you could also file a police report. Let the prosecutor decide whether to press charges. But Mrs. Henderson, I need you to understand, pursuing legal action against your daughter will likely destroy your relationship. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Nicole crying in my living room, about the years we'd been close, about the daughter I thought I knew. She destroyed our relationship when she stole from me. I'm just making sure she faces consequences. Then let's move forward. I'll draft the civil complaint. You should also consider filing a police report. Even if they don't prosecute, it creates an official record. Over the next week, I did 3 things. First, I filed a police report detailing the theft. The officer who took my report was sympathetic but realistic. "Ma'am, cases like this are complicated because they involve family and because technically your daughter had authorization to access the accounts. The prosecutor might decline to file charges, but it's still worth reporting." Second, Lisa filed a civil lawsuit against Nicole and Greg for $67,000 plus interest, damages, and attorney fees. Third, I changed my will. Nicole had been the sole beneficiary, not anymore. I created a new will leaving everything to charity with a specific clause. I am intentionally excluding my daughter Nicole from my estate due to her theft of $67,000 from my accounts during my lifetime. When Nicole received the lawsuit papers, she called me, hysterical. "Mom, how could you sue us? We're family. You stole from me. I'm recovering what's mine. We were going to pay you back." "When? How? Nicole, you've had a week to come up with a repayment plan, have you?" Silence. "That's what I thought. Nicole, you made your choices. Now you face the consequences. If you go through with this lawsuit, I'll never speak to you again. You'll never see me again. Is that what you want?" "What I want is my money back. What you do with our relationship is up to you." "I can't believe you're choosing money over your daughter." "I'm not choosing money over you. You chose money over me when you stole $67,000 and lied about it. Nicole, you made this choice, not me." She hung up, and I sat in my quiet house, alone, wondering if I'd made the right decision. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Greg's mother, Patricia. I'd met her a few times over the years. Nice woman, seemed reasonable. "Ruth, I hope you don't mind me calling. Greg told me what's happening. I wanted to talk to you." "About what?" "About the lawsuit. Ruth, I know my son made mistakes. I know he and Nicole took money they shouldn't have. But Ruth, a lawsuit, criminal reports, that seems extreme. They stole $67,000 from me. They borrowed it, with every intention of paying you back." "No, they stole it and lied about what it was for. Patricia, they spent my money on vacations and motorcycles while telling me they needed it for emergencies. That's theft. But family should work these things out privately, not through courts and lawyers. Ruth, you're destroying their lives over money. They damaged my retirement security by stealing from me. Patricia, whose side are you on here?" "I'm on my son's side. But Ruth, I'm also trying to prevent this from getting worse. What if we worked out a repayment plan? Greg and Nicole pay you back over time and you drop the lawsuit. Everyone wins." "I've asked for a repayment plan multiple times. They haven't provided one." "Because they're scared. Because they don't know how to fix this. Ruth, if you'd work with them instead of against them." "Patricia, they had 6 months to tell me the truth. 6 months to stop taking money and admit what they'd done. They didn't. They kept stealing and kept lying. I'm done working with people who have proven they'll lie to my face." "So you're going to destroy your relationship with your daughter over money?" "No. Nicole destroyed our relationship by stealing from me. I'm just making sure she doesn't get away with it." Patricia hung up, disappointed. But I didn't care. I was tired of people telling me I should just accept being stolen from because family. A month after filing the lawsuit, Lisa called with an update. "Mrs. Henderson, Nicole and Greg's attorney has requested a settlement conference. They want to negotiate." "What are they offering?" "They're proposing to repay you $20,000 immediately, and the remaining $47,000 over 5 years at $1,000 per month." I did the math. 5 years of payments. That's $60,000 total over 5 years. They're trying to short me $7,000. They're claiming they don't have the full amount, and that's the best they can do. Tell them no, they stole $67,000. They pay back $67,000 plus interest, plus my attorney fees. Mrs. Henderson, there's a risk. If we go to trial and win, which I think we would, we'd still have to collect the judgment. If they declare bankruptcy, you might not recover anything. They can declare bankruptcy. Potentially. It might not discharge the debt since it was obtained through fraud, but they could try. Mrs. Henderson, $20,000 now plus monthly payments might be better than a judgment you can't collect. I thought about it. $20,000 immediately, guaranteed, versus risking years of trying to collect a judgment. How would we guarantee the monthly payments? We'd include penalties for default. If they miss even one payment, the full remaining balance becomes due immediately. We'd also put a lien on any assets they have. Do they have assets? They own a car with about $8,000 in equity. That's it. Ruth, they're telling the truth about being broke. They have massive credit card debt and almost no savings. Because they spent everything, including my money, on luxuries they couldn't afford. I know, but financially, they're tapped out. This settlement might be the best realistic option for actual recovery. I hated it. Hated that Nicole and Greg had put me in this position. Hated that they might get away with paying less than they stole. But I also recognized reality. $20,000, now plus guaranteed payments, was better than a judgment I'd spend years trying to collect. Accept the settlement, but I want it in writing, legally binding. Miss one payment and I want the right to immediately pursue the full remaining balance plus penalties. I'll draft the agreement. The settlement was finalized 3 weeks later. Nicole and Greg paid me $20,000 immediately. I suspected they'd borrowed it from Greg's parents. The remaining $47,000 would be paid at $1,000 per month for 47 months, with severe penalties for any missed payments. It wasn't full justice, but it was something. And most importantly, I had legal documentation of exactly what they'd done and what they owed me. They moved funds without telling me, so I took notes. And those notes, that careful documentation, had given me the leverage I needed to force them to pay back at least most of what they'd stolen. But the story didn't end there. Because 2 months into their payment plan, Nicole missed a payment. And that's when I discovered what they'd really been doing with the money they stole from me, something far worse than vacations and motorcycles. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. When the first monthly payment didn't arrive by the 5th day of the month, the deadline specified in our settlement agreement, I called Lisa Chen. They missed the payment. What do we do? Let me contact their attorney first. Sometimes payments are just delayed. We'll give them a few days before invoking the default clause. But I had a bad feeling. Nicole and Greg had been desperate to avoid the full judgment. Why would they risk defaulting on the very first payment after the settlement? 3 days later, Lisa called back. Mrs. Henderson, Nicole's attorney, says they're experiencing temporary cash flow problems. They're asking for a 1-week extension on this month's payment. The agreement says any missed payment triggers the full balance due immediately. No extensions. I know, but Mrs. Henderson, if we invoke the default clause now, we're back to trying to collect a $47,000 judgment. If we give them one extension, just this once, they might get back on track. Or they might use the extension as an excuse to miss more payments. Lisa, these are people who stole $67,000 from me and lied about it for months. Why should I trust them now? You shouldn't trust them, but you should consider what's practical. One extension, clearly documented, with no future extensions allowed. If they miss another payment, we immediately pursue the full judgment. Reluctantly, I agreed. 1 extension, 1 week, that's it. 7 days later, the payment arrived. Late, but it arrived. I deposited the check and noted in my records. October payment received 12 days late. Extension granted with warning that no future extensions will be allowed. The November payment arrived on time. So did December and January. I started to relax slightly, thinking maybe Nicole and Greg were actually going to follow through on the agreement. Then February's payment didn't arrive at all. I waited a week. Nothing. I called Lisa. They've defaulted. Invoke the clause. I want the full remaining balance due immediately. Lisa contacted Nicole's attorney, who responded with a surprising claim. My clients dispute the settlement agreement. They claim it was signed under duress and is therefore not legally binding. Duress? I was furious. They signed it to avoid a judgment. How is that duress? It's not, Lisa said calmly. It's a legal tactic. They're trying to get out of the agreement. Mrs. Henderson, we're going to have to fight this. File a motion to enforce the settlement agreement and pursue the full balance. Do it. But before Lisa could file the motion, something else happened. I received a call from a detective with the Financial Crimes Unit. Mrs. Henderson, this is Detective Marcus Johnson. I'm calling about the police report you filed regarding your daughter and son-in-law taking money from your accounts. Yes, I filed that report months ago. I was told the prosecutor probably wouldn't pursue charges. That was true initially. But Mrs. Henderson, we've received additional reports. 2 other elderly women have filed complaints against Greg Henderson for similar thefts. We're now investigating him for elder financial abuse as part of a pattern of criminal behavior. My blood went cold. Other victims, who? I can't give you names. But Mrs. Henderson, in both cases, Greg Henderson gained access to elderly women's bank accounts, not his relatives, but women he befriended, and then systematically withdrew funds without authorization. We're building a case for criminal prosecution. How much did he take from them? Combined, approximately $90,000. And Mrs. Henderson, based on the pattern we're seeing, we believe your $67,000 fits into a larger scheme. Greg wasn't just stealing from you to fund his lifestyle. He was running a systematic fraud operation. My daughter, Nicole, is she involved in the other thefts? We don't believe so. The other victims didn't know Nicole. They only knew Greg. Mrs. Henderson, we think Greg manipulated your daughter into helping him steal from you, but the other thefts appear to be his alone. What happens now? We're building a criminal case. We'll likely arrest Greg within the next few weeks. Mrs. Henderson, I need to ask, has Greg had access to any other elderly people in your social circle? Friends, neighbors? I thought about it. Greg had come to several events at my senior center, church functions. He'd been friendly, charming, had conversations with various people. He's been around my friends, at social events. Detective, are you saying he might have targeted people he met through me? It's possible. One of the other victims mentioned meeting Greg at a church event. Mrs. Henderson, did Greg ever ask you to introduce him to friends who might need financial advice? My mind raced back through conversations, and then I remembered. About 8 months ago, right around when the thefts from my account were accelerating, Greg had asked me something. Mom, Ruth, you know so many people from your banking days. Do you have any friends who might need help managing their investments? I'm trying to build my client base. I'd introduced him to 2 people. Margaret, a widow from my church, and Doris, a former coworker who'd mentioned needing help understanding her late husband's investment accounts. Detective, I need to call some people. I think I might know who the other victims are. If you do, please have them contact me directly. And Mrs. Henderson, thank you for filing that initial report. Without it, we might not have connected these cases. After hanging up with the detective, I immediately called Margaret. Margaret, this is Ruth. I need to ask you something important. Did Greg help you with your finances? There was a long pause. How did you know? My heart sank. Margaret, how much? 45,000. Ruth, I'm so ashamed. He seemed so professional. He said he was helping me rebalance my portfolio. Instead, he emptied my accounts. Why didn't you tell me? Because you introduced us. I thought you'd vouched for him. And Ruth, I felt so stupid for being scammed. I didn't want anyone to know. Margaret, he did the same thing to me. 67,000 from my accounts. And he did it to someone else too. We need to report this to Detective Johnson. He's building a criminal case. After talking to Margaret, I called Doris. Same story. Greg had convinced her to give him access to her accounts to help manage her investments. He'd taken $43,000. Both of my friends, women I'd known for decades, had been victimized by my son-in-law, and he'd used me to gain their trust. I felt sick, not just because Greg had stolen from me, but because he'd used my relationships to victimize other elderly women. Women who'd trusted him because I'd introduced him. I called Detective Johnson back and gave him Margaret and Doris's contact information. "Detective, these are the other victims, aren't they?" "I can't confirm that, but thank you for the information. Mrs. Henderson will be in touch." That evening, I called Nicole. She answered warily. "Mom." "Nicole, did you know Greg was stealing from other people? From my friends?" "What? No, what are you talking about?" "Greg stole from Margaret and Doris. Women I introduced him to. He took their money just like he took mine. Nicole, the police are investigating him for elder financial abuse." "That's not possible. Greg wouldn't." "He did. And Nicole, you need to decide right now where you stand. Are you going to keep defending a man who's been running a criminal fraud operation, or are you going to face reality?" "Mom, Greg told me about Margaret and Doris. He said they invested with him and the investments lost money. That's different from stealing." "Nicole, wake up. He didn't invest their money, he stole it. Just like he stole mine, and he used me to gain their trust." "You're just trying to turn me against him." "I'm trying to help you see that you married a con artist. Nicole, the police are going to arrest Greg, probably within weeks. You need to decide if you're going to be loyal to a criminal or if you're going to protect yourself. Greg is my husband. I'm not abandoning him because you're mad about money." "This isn't about me being mad. This is about Greg systematically defrauding elderly women. Nicole, if you knew what he was doing and didn't stop him, you could be charged as an accomplice." "I didn't know anything." "Then prove it. Cooperate with the investigation. Tell them everything you know about what Greg did with my money." "I'm not betraying my husband." "Then you're choosing to go down with him. Nicole, I hope that loyalty is worth it when you're both facing criminal charges." I hung up, frustrated and heartbroken. My daughter was so committed to defending Greg that she couldn't see, or wouldn't admit, that he'd been using her to commit crimes. 2 weeks later, Detective Johnson called again. "Mrs. Henderson, we've arrested Greg Henderson. He's been charged with 3 counts of elder financial abuse, multiple counts of theft and fraud. His bail is set at $100,000. "What about Nicole, my daughter?" "We don't have evidence she was involved in the thefts from the other victims. As for your case, she did access your accounts, but proving criminal intent when she's your daughter and had authorization is difficult. The prosecutor has decided not to charge her at this time." "So she gets away with it." "Civilly, you can still pursue her. Criminally, there's not enough evidence she acted with criminal intent rather than just going along with what her husband told her to do." After the detective hung up, I sat with the reality of the situation. Greg would face criminal prosecution. Nicole would escape criminal charges but still owed me money under our civil settlement. And I had to live with the knowledge that my son-in-law had used me to victimize my friends. I called Margaret. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. I never should have introduced you to Greg. I never imagined he was a con artist." "Ruth, it's not your fault. He fooled all of us, even you." "But I brought him into your life. If I hadn't introduced you, he would have found another way to meet me. Ruth, men like Greg are predators. They seek out vulnerable people. You didn't cause this. He did. Still, I feel responsible." "Don't, Ruth. What you should feel is proud. You're the one who filed the police report that started the investigation. Without you, Greg might still be out there stealing from elderly women. You stopped him." That perspective helped, but I still felt guilty. 3 days after Greg's arrest, Nicole called me. Her voice was different, smaller, scared. "Mom, Greg's in jail. He can't make bail. His parents don't have enough money. Mom, I don't know what to do." You could start by telling the truth about what you knew, and when you knew it. I didn't know about the other women. I swear. Greg told me they were investment clients who lost money in the market. I didn't know he'd stolen from them. What about my money? What did you think was happening with that? Nicole was quiet for a long moment. I knew we were taking money we shouldn't have. I knew Greg was lying about what we needed it for. But Mom, he kept saying we'd pay you back. He kept saying it was just temporary, and I wanted to believe him. So you knew it was wrong and did it anyway. Yes, and Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was weak. I wanted the vacations and the nice things. I wanted to keep Greg happy. I wanted to believe his promises. And I convinced myself that it was okay because you had plenty of money and we'd eventually pay you back. Nicole, you stole $67,000 from me. I know, and I don't know how to make it right. Mom, Greg's going to prison. Our marriage is over. I'm filing for divorce. I'm going to lose our house because I can't afford it without Greg's income. My life is falling apart. Those are consequences of choices you made. I know, and Mom, I deserve them. I deserve to lose everything. But Mom, I need you to know I am sorry, truly sorry. Not because I got caught, not because I'm facing consequences, but because I hurt you, because I betrayed your trust, because I stole from the woman who sacrificed everything to raise me. I wanted to believe her, wanted to think this crisis had finally opened Nicole's eyes to what she'd done. But I'd been fooled before, by Nicole's promises to pay me back, by Greg's charm, by my own desire to believe my family wouldn't hurt me. Nicole, I hear what you're saying, but words are easy. What are you going to do to make this right? I'm going to keep making the monthly payments, even if I have to get a second job, even if it takes years. Mom, I'm going to pay you back every penny, not because a settlement agreement says I have to, but because it's the right thing to do. You missed the February payment. I know, that was Greg. He told me he'd made the payment, but he kept the money for bail fund. Mom, I didn't know until after. I'll make February's payment this week, and I'll make every payment after that on time. Nicole, if you miss even one more payment, I'm pursuing the full judgment. No more extensions. No more second chances. I understand. Mom, I won't miss another payment. I promise. After hanging up with Nicole, I updated my notes. March 15, Nicole called. Claims she didn't know about other victims. Apologized. Promised to resume payments. Will monitor to see if actions match words. Because that's what this had taught me. Trust words but verify with actions. And document everything. A week later, Nicole sent me $2,000, covering both the missed February payment and March's payment. She included a note. Mom, I know money doesn't fix what I did, but it's a start. I love you and I'm sorry. Over the next 3 months, Nicole made every payment on time. She also did something unexpected. She got a second job and started sending extra money beyond the required $1,000 per month. April, $1,500. May, $1,500. June, $1,800. I noted each payment carefully, tracking not just that they arrived, but that they exceeded the minimum requirement. Meanwhile, Greg's criminal case moved forward. His attorney tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor was firm. Given the multiple victims and the systematic nature of the fraud, they wanted significant prison time. Greg went to trial. I testified, as did Margaret and Doris. We each described how Greg had gained access to our accounts and systematically stolen from us. The jury deliberated for 2 days. Then they returned with their verdict, guilty on all counts. Greg was sentenced to 6 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution of $200,000 to his 3 victims. $67,000 to me, $88,000 to Margaret and Doris combined, and $45,000 to another victim who'd come forward during the investigation. But prison restitution is different from a civil judgment. Greg would be making token payments, probably $50 per month, from whatever money he could earn while incarcerated. It would take decades to repay the full amount if he ever did. The week after Greg's sentencing, Nicole came to my house. It was the first time I'd seen her in person since the day I confronted her about the theft. She looked different, thinner, tired. Her designer purse was gone, replaced with a simple canvas bag, no expensive jewelry or clothes. "Mom, can we talk?" I let her in. We sat at the same kitchen table where I'd documented her thefts, where I'd planned my response, where I'd decided to fight back. "I wanted to tell you in person. I'm paying you back faster. I got a promotion at work and I picked up weekend shifts at a retail job. Mom, I can afford to pay you $1,500 per month instead of $1,000. Why? Because I want to make this right as fast as possible. Because every day I owe you money is a reminder of what I did. Mom, I want to pay you back in full within 2 years if I can." I calculated quickly. At $1,500 per month, she'd pay off the remaining $43,000 in just under 2 years, much faster than the original plan. "What about your bills? Can you afford that?" I moved to a cheaper apartment. I sold my car and bought an old used one. I stopped buying anything that isn't essential. Mom, I'm living the way you always told me I should, within my means, saving what I can, prioritizing what matters. It took losing everything for you to learn that lesson. Yes, and Mom, I'm in therapy, working on my spending addiction, my need for external validation, my tendency to follow Greg's lead instead of thinking for myself. I'm trying to become a person you can be proud of again. Nicole, I want to believe you, I do, but you've promised things before. I know, and this time I'm not just making promises, I'm showing you through my actions. Mom, I'm making the payments. I'm changing my life. I'm facing what I did instead of making excuses. And I'll keep doing that whether you forgive me or not, because it's the right thing to do. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw something I hadn't seen in years. Humility, genuine remorse, a willingness to do the hard work of change instead of just talking about it. Keep making the payments. Keep changing your life. And Nicole, over time, will see if we can rebuild trust. That's all I can ask for. Thank you, Mom. Over the next 18 months, Nicole made every payment on time. $1,500 per month, without fail. She also started coming to visit me monthly, always bringing groceries or helping with chores around my house. We didn't talk much about the theft. There wasn't much left to say. But slowly, gradually, we started rebuilding something. Not the relationship we'd had before, that was gone forever. But maybe something new, something built on honesty instead of blind trust. And through it all, I kept taking notes, recording every payment, every conversation, every action that proved Nicole was serious about change. Because they'd moved funds without telling me, and I'd taken notes. And those notes had not only helped me recover my money, they'd also helped me see when real change was happening versus when it was just empty promises. Before I continue this story, kindly subscribe, like, turn on the notification bell, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. 22 months after Nicole began her accelerated repayment plan, she made the final payment. I opened the envelope to find a check for $1,500 and a handwritten letter. "Mom, this is the last payment. 22 months of $1,500 per month equals $33,000, which covers the remaining balance after the initial $20,000 settlement plus the extra payments I've been making. According to my calculations, I've now repaid the full $67,000 I stole from you, plus an additional $6,000 to cover the interest and attorney fees you incurred. I know money doesn't undo the betrayal. But it's a start. I love you and I hope someday you can fully forgive me. Nicole." I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I documented every theft, every lie, every broken promise, and verified her math. She was right. Over 22 months between the settlement payment and the monthly installments, Nicole had repaid $73,000. The full $67,000 she'd stolen, plus $6,000 extra. I opened my notebook, the one I'd been keeping for nearly 3 years now, and wrote the final entry. April 18. Final payment received from Nicole. Total repaid, $73,000. Account settled in full. Then I closed the notebook and put it on a shelf. I didn't need it anymore. That evening, I called Nicole. I received your payment and your letter. And you've repaid everything, plus extra. Nicole, you've fulfilled your obligation. I know I have legally, but Mom, I don't think I'll ever fully repay what I took from you. The money, yes, but the trust, the peace of mind, I don't know if I can ever give that back. Trust is earned over time. You've been earning it back little by little. The payments, the visits, the changed behavior. Nicole, I see the effort you've been making. Does that mean you forgive me? I thought about that question. Did I forgive her? I'm working toward forgiveness. I'm not all the way there yet. But Nicole, I'm closer than I was 2 years ago. That's enough. Mom, that's more than I deserve. A week later, I invited Nicole to lunch. Not at my house, at a restaurant. Neutral ground, a fresh start. Over lunch, Nicole told me about her life. She'd been promoted again at work, was now a department manager making decent money. She'd finished therapy and was attending a support group for people with spending addictions. She had a savings account with $12,000 in it, the most she'd ever saved in her life. Mom, I'm doing things I never thought I could do. Living on a budget, saving money, making plans for the future instead of just spending everything as soon as I get it. And you know what? I'm happier now than I was when Greg and I were spending money we didn't have on things we didn't need. I'm proud of you, Nicole, truly. Thank you, that means everything. What about Greg? Have you heard from him? He writes me from prison occasionally, apologizing, claiming he's changed, asking me to wait for him. She shook her head. I'm not waiting. I filed for divorce 2 years ago. It's been final for a year now. Mom, I'm done with Greg. I see clearly now what he was, a con artist who used me to steal from you and others. I'm ashamed I didn't see it sooner. You loved him. Love makes people blind sometimes. That's generous. Mom, I was willfully blind. I didn't want to see the truth because the truth was inconvenient. But I can't use that excuse anymore. I made terrible choices. I hurt you. I helped hurt your friends. I have to live with that. You're making amends. That matters. After lunch, as we were walking to our cars, Nicole said something that surprised me. Mom, I need to tell you something. Margaret and Doris, your friends that Greg stole from, I've been making payments to them too. What? Not as much as I've been paying you. Just $200 a month to each of them. But Mom, Greg stole from them because I introduced him to them through you. I feel responsible, so I've been paying them back too. Nicole, you weren't legally obligated to do that. No, but it was the right thing to do. Mom, they're elderly women on fixed incomes. Greg destroyed their financial security just like he destroyed yours. I can't undo that, but I can help, so I have been. How long have you been doing this? About 18 months, since I stabilized financially enough to afford it. Margaret and Doris have each received about $3,600 from me. It's not much compared to what they lost, but it's something. I looked at my daughter with new eyes. This wasn't the woman who'd stolen from me and lied about it. This was someone who was genuinely trying to make amends, not just to me, but to everyone who'd been hurt by her and Greg's actions. I'm proud of you, I said again, and this time I meant it even more deeply. That night, I called Margaret to verify what Nicole had told me. Margaret, did Nicole send you money? She did, has been for over a year now. Ruth, I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure you'd want to know. $200 a month. She includes little notes apologizing for what Greg did. Why didn't you tell me? Because I could see you were trying to heal from what happened. I didn't want to complicate that. But Ruth, your daughter is trying, really trying, not just with words but with actions. After hanging up with Margaret, I sat in my quiet house and thought about everything that had happened over the past 3 years. Nicole and Greg had stolen $67,000 from me. They'd lied about it for months. They'd used the account access I'd given them for emergencies to fund a lifestyle they couldn't afford. Greg had gone further, using me to victimize my friends, stealing from multiple elderly women, running a systematic fraud operation. I documented everything, kept meticulous notes. Used those notes to force accountability, to recover my money, to help build the criminal case that put Greg in prison. And now, 3 years later, I had my money back, plus extra. My relationship with Nicole was slowly healing, and my daughter was not just making amends to me, but to others she'd helped hurt. They'd moved funds without telling me, but I'd taken notes, and those notes had saved me. Not just financially, though that was important, but emotionally and psychologically too, because having documentation gave me confidence, gave me evidence when people tried to gaslight me or minimize what had happened, gave me leverage to demand accountability. Without those notes, Nicole and Greg might have continued their denials, might have convinced me I was overreacting or misremembering, might have gotten away with it. But I had documentation. Clear, detailed, irrefutable documentation of what they'd done. And that documentation had changed everything. 6 months after Nicole made her final payment to me, I did something I'd been considering for a while. I called a meeting with Margaret, Doris, and several other women from my senior center. I wanted to talk to you about financial safety, about protecting yourselves from the kind of fraud that Greg perpetrated against us. I spent 2 hours teaching them what I'd learned, about the importance of documentation, about red flags to watch for, about never giving anyone, even family, unrestricted access to their accounts. Write everything down, I told them. Every conversation about money, every transaction, every promise someone makes, because memory fades but notes don't lie. Several women took notes as I spoke. One asked, "But what if it's your own child asking for help? How do you say no to family?" You don't have to say no, but you verify, you document, you set boundaries. Love your family but protect yourself. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. After the meeting, Margaret pulled me aside. "Ruth, you should do this more widely. Teach classes. Help other elderly people protect themselves." That conversation planted a seed. Over the next few months, I developed a presentation about elder financial abuse, about warning signs, about documentation strategies, about how to balance family relationships with financial protection. I started presenting at senior centers throughout the area, at churches, at community organizations, sharing my story, how my daughter and son-in-law had stolen from me, how I documented everything, how that documentation had saved me. The presentations were hard at first. Admitting publicly that my own daughter had stolen from me was humiliating, but the response I got made it worthwhile. After one presentation, an elderly man approached me. "My son has been asking to be added to my accounts. I was going to say yes, but after hearing your story, I'm going to say no, or at least I'm going to put strict limits on what he can do. Thank you for sharing this." After another presentation, a woman told me, "My grandson has been taking money from my account for emergencies. I've been documenting it just like you said. I have 6 months of notes now. I'm going to confront him this week." Hearing these stories, knowing that my experience was helping others protect themselves, gave meaning to what I'd gone through. 1 year after Nicole's final payment, I was invited to speak at a statewide conference on elder financial abuse. Lawyers, social workers, law enforcement, and advocates attended. I told my story to an audience of 200 professionals. After the presentation, a woman from the state attorney general's office approached me. "Mrs. Henderson, your documentation was remarkable. The notes you kept, they should be a model for how victims document abuse. Would you be willing to work with us to create educational materials?" "What kind of materials?" "A handbook for elderly people on how to document financial transactions, how to keep records that can be used as evidence. Your notebook, the one you kept, could you share what you included and how you organized it?" Over the next 6 months, I worked with the Attorney General's office to create the documentation guide, protecting your finances through careful record keeping. It was a 20-page handbook showing exactly what to document, how to organize it, and how to use it to protect yourself. The guide was distributed to senior centers, elder law attorneys, and adult protective services throughout the state. Thousands of copies were printed and shared. and I included a dedication. For Nicole, who taught me that trust without verification is dangerous, and that documentation is protection. And for Margaret and Doris, who deserved better from the people they trusted. 2 years after Nicole's final payment, she came to one of my presentations. She sat in the back, listening as I told the story of how my daughter and son-in-law had stolen from me. After the presentation, she approached me with tears in her eyes. "Mom, I didn't know you were doing this, teaching people how to protect themselves. I wanted something good to come from what happened. If my experience helps even one person avoid being victimized, it's worth it. But you talk about me, about what I did. Doesn't that embarrass you?" "Sometimes, but Nicole, the embarrassment is worth it if it helps others. And besides, you're not defined by what you did 3 years ago. You're defined by what you've done since." "Thank you for saying that. Nicole, you've repaid me financially. You've changed your behavior. You've made amends to others you hurt. That matters. That's who you are now." We left the presentation together, mother and daughter, walking to our cars side by side. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "What?" "The notebook, the one where you documented everything I did. Do you still have it?" "Yes, it's on a shelf in my office." "Could I see it? Someday. I know that sounds strange, but I want to see what you saw, the full scope of what I did, all the lies documented in one place." "Why?" "Because I never want to forget. I never want to minimize what I did or pretend it wasn't as bad as it was. Mom, that notebook is evidence of the worst version of myself. I need to remember her so I never become her again." "Okay, you can see it. But Nicole, you also need to remember, that's not who you are anymore. That notebook shows who you were. Your actions over the past 3 years show who you've become." 3 years after Nicole's final payment to me, 5 years after the thefts began, I received a letter from the State Banking Commission. They wanted to honor me with an award for my work educating elderly people about financial protection. The ceremony was held at the state capitol. Nicole came with me. So did Margaret and Doris. And so did about 50 elderly people I'd trained through my presentations. When I accepted the award, I spoke about why documentation matters. 5 years ago, my daughter and son-in-law moved funds from my accounts without telling me. They took $67,000 over 6 months. They lied about what they needed the money for. They used my trust against me. But I took notes. I documented every transaction, every conversation, every lie. And those notes gave me power, the power to prove what had happened, the power to demand accountability, the power to recover what was mine. Documentation isn't about being paranoid or mistrusting. It's about being prudent. It's about protecting yourself while still maintaining relationships. It's about having evidence when someone tries to make you doubt your own memory or perception. They moved funds without telling me. I took notes, and those notes saved me, not just financially, but emotionally and psychologically too. If you remember nothing else from my story, remember this, write it down. Every financial conversation, every transaction, every promise, because memory fades, but notes don't lie. And in a world where even family can betray you, documentation is your best defense. The audience gave me a standing ovation. Nicole was crying. Margaret and Doris were smiling. After the ceremony, Nicole and I went to dinner. "Mom, I'm proud of you, for turning what we did to you into something that helps others, for not letting it destroy you, for fighting back and winning. I'm proud of you too, for facing what you did, for making real changes, for becoming someone who makes amends instead of excuses. We've both changed, haven't we? You became an advocate, I became responsible. We both became different people because of what happened." "We did, and Nicole, I think we're both better for it, even though the path to get here was painful." "Mom, can I ask, do you forgive me? Fully, completely forgive me?" I thought about that question, the same question she'd asked multiple times over the years, and for the first time, I knew the answer. "Yes, I forgive you, not because you've paid me back, though that matters, not because you've changed, though that matters too, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. Nicole, I forgive you, and I'm choosing to build a future with you instead of staying stuck in the past. Nicole hugged me, crying, thank you so much. Now, at 77 years old, I look back on everything that happened and see it clearly. They moved funds without telling me. My daughter and son-in-law stole $67,000 from my retirement savings. They lied about it for months. They used my trust against me. But I took notes. Detailed, careful notes that documented every theft, every lie, every broken promise. Those notes gave me the evidence I needed to fight back, to force accountability, to recover my money, to help send a con artist to prison, to protect my friends from further victimization. But more than that, those notes taught me a lesson I now share with thousands of elderly people. Trust, but verify. Love, but protect yourself. Hope for the best, but document everything. Because in a world where even family can betray you, documentation is power. It's protection. It's the difference between being a victim who gets away with nothing and a survivor who fights back and wins. My relationship with Nicole is good now. Not perfect, the scars from what happened will always be there. But it's honest. It's real. It's built on actions rather than empty promises. She's still making payments to Margaret and Doris, has been for over 3 years now. She's helped them recover about $7,200 each, not the full amounts they lost, but something. She has $24,000 in savings now, more than she's ever had in her life. She owns her car outright. She lives within her means. She's become the financially responsible person I always hoped she'd be. As for me, I have my money back. All $67,000 plus the $6,000 Nicole paid in interest and fees. My retirement is secure again. But more importantly, I have purpose. I've helped hundreds of elderly people learn to protect themselves. I've taught them to keep notes, to document conversations, to verify transactions. And I've proven something important. Being victimized doesn't mean staying a victim. Fighting back is possible. Recovery is possible. Even healing is possible with time and effort. They moved funds without telling me, but I took notes. And those notes didn't just save my money. They saved my dignity, my independence, and ultimately my relationship with my daughter. Because documentation is power. And in the battle to protect yourself from financial abuse, power is everything. Write it down, every conversation, every transaction, every promise. Because memory fades, but notes don't lie. And when someone tries to steal from you, even if that someone is family, your notes will be the weapon that helps you fight back and win. If this story touched you, please subscribe, like, and turn on the notification bell for more emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Somewhere out there, I might be reading.